a little bit about what it is that you do?
Sure, and yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and great to see you again. I know it's like soon as we can do that in person as well, that'd be fantastic. So yeah, I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called My2B, which is based in Manchester. We are a mentoring and development platform. So we help scale mentoring and development programs across organizations. We work with a variety of companies in the UK, but also over in the US and Silicon Valley. And we landed our biggest client there last year in Box, who you might have heard of. And we've had a bit of a shift in that whilst we are all about inclusive development, it's actually become right at the forefront of what we're doing now, largely because of that use case with Box. When we sat down with them to develop the program for them, they really wanted to focus on developing the underrepresented talent as a starting point. And it really woke us up in terms of like what that is about, and how important that is for any organization, and the value it has, because we've probably had quite a holistic rose-tinted glasses view of things, of like, oh, mentoring's for everyone and you can just absolutely launch it for everyone from the start, and things like that. And we still believe in that, but I think actually having a focal point of particularly the underrepresented groups to start with really does then give the power across the organization, because I think one of the most important things around that is it brings in the allies. So the people who aren't in those groups, who are unaware of the challenges that they face, they then ultimately learn more about that. They become better leaders themselves. They become a more inclusive organization. They can see better career paths for people. So one of the big things we say we're about on this sort of topic in particular is moving from policies to action. So I think most companies do have some sort of diversity policy, but it just sits on an intranet somewhere, and it's never really, what is it? What's it doing? I think things like mentoring and inclusive development is a huge part of actually taking action on that.
Incredible. Some really fantastic themes there that we'll dig a little bit deeper in. But first of all, you mentioned there kind of underrepresented groups and inclusion, and I think they're probably two phrases that we hear quite a lot, that are just worth kind of taking a step back. So when we talk about underrepresented groups, does that vary a lot between different sectors, or are you kind of seeing in all different organisations there's particular groups that would benefit from this programme?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing like each organisation is naturally different. I think the common thing we see with tech companies is they'll have what are called like the employee resource groups or employee resource communities, and they're a brilliant thing, because they are really driven by the employees. They belong to that group to develop like programs, to develop initiatives and events to bring awareness to the rest of the organization, and they are fantastic that they have those. I think traditional organizations don't really have those things in place, and they're not really there. They sort of they don't really have anything like that. But again, when they're looking at developing their underrepresented talent, it's actually then trying to identify that, because they are underrepresented, then they're a bit off the radar sometimes. So that's like, how do they go about flagging who should belong and who shouldn't, or for a program like that? And that can be a challenge for those organizations. So again, helping with that is something we're really trying to do now as part of the program itself. And yeah, in terms of the benefit for those groups, it's massive. It's that opportunity to create that network, to open doors, to create opportunities for them, so that they wouldn't have otherwise had, and connecting with people that they wouldn't have necessarily met otherwise.
Fantastic. And obviously like a huge advocate for the importance of mentoring in all kinds of different ways. If an organisation is looking at this and thinking, what is mentoring? How does it work? We talk about, coaching, we talk about mentoring, we talk about, the relationship that you might have with a line manager. What's special about that mentoring relationship? Like what makes it work?
So the best mentors are good listeners. That's what they're there for. They're there to help the person, and it doesn't have to be someone younger than them. It doesn't have to be someone junior to them. That is your traditional relationship. But it doesn't have to be that. It can be that anyone can mentor anyone, because mentoring is largely about experience. So you're not necessarily giving advice and telling people how to go and do something. You're actually listening to what they're doing and then leaning on your own experience to suggest things to them, to give them, you know, things to think about, to help them through the situation or to progress in a way, and to get where they want to be. And I think that's, again, going back to, I think that the most important thing for any mentor, the most important skill is to be a good listener, to listen to the challenges that person's facing, to listen to the progress they want to make, and then to lean on that experience to help them get there.
Fantastic. And do you have a mentor? Have you got people who you're in that relationship with?
Yeah, I have a couple actually, and I think I recently had a bit of a Twitter exchange with the co-founder of Shopify on this, and he really nailed the point of having different mentors for different parts of your life, because again, it is about experience. So it's that being able to lean on someone for, you know, there's different aspects. So you might have someone who's maybe your mentor for your career. You might have someone who's maybe a mentor in your family situation, and, you know, and hobbyists, whatever it is, you know, having that person who's had the experience, who's got that understanding, who can guide you, can point you in the right direction, adds a lot of value. And I think one of the best things about having multiple mentors is you're always going to get different perspectives, because everything in life does overlap, whether it is your career, your family, your hobbies, whatever it is, they do overlap, they do have connections to them. So when you're getting different perspectives on things, it really does give you different options and different ways of thinking that you might not have done otherwise.
Fantastic. And, you know, I know as someone who finds it very easy to just be like, I know the answer here, can you just do what I'm telling you? Like, being able to take that step back and be like, no, I just need to listen to what you're telling me. It's like that's quite a challenge in those relationships. If people on this call are listening now and thinking, you know, this sounds brilliant, need to get myself one or more mentors, how would you suggest going about doing that and setting up that mentoring relationship?
So, I mean, the first thing to do is ask. You know, without asking, the answer is always going to be no. And I always say, like, start with who you know in that sense. So if you do know someone, if there's a particular, you know, if it's a career thing or if it's a personal thing, the chances are you will know someone who's in the scenario or in the place you want to be, who you can then go and reach out to. And you don't have to make it formal from the outset. You can just say, you know, look, I am after a bit of advice, or I'm trying to get my head around something. Can we have a conversation? And most people are open to that. Most people, you know, I think one of the most rewarding and best things when we set this company up was, like, again, having sort of rose-tinted glasses on, thinking the world, you know, the way the world is. We were gambling on the fact that people are receptive to helping people, and it is true, that is the case, which is brilliant, because if they weren't, we wouldn't have a business. But people, you know, everyone's busy, everyone's like, oh, I haven't got time for this, I haven't got time for that. But when people reach out asking for help, the general answer is yes, I can give you some time. And that's where to start. I think if you start with an informal relationship, and then you don't have to you can formalize it. You can say, look, I'd like you to mentor me. Can we put some structure around this? And then you can go from there and set, like, you know, a regular meeting up and things like that. I mean, this is what we do with programs. It's what we do with the platform for the companies we work with. We set that formalized sort of agendas and things like that, where they can track it and make the progress. But if you're just at a point where your company isn't offering it, I mean, please, you can always knock on our door and we can speak to the company. More than happy with that. If it's on that just personal, like, situation, you want to just reach out to someone, I think just asking for that first conversation, and seeing where you can get to is always going to be a good starting point.
Fantastic. And as we mentioned, we're both based in and around Manchester, and it is a fantastically open, collaborative city. And, you know, I've been overwhelmed by how many people have been happy to give up their time and answer questions and offer that kind of informal mentoring. The other bit that I think might just be worth flagging here is sometimes people offer to be mentors, but for the wrong reason. So if people are out there that, you know, they can see, you know, here's a bit of a rising star, there's a bit of a buzz around them, and I see kind of, you know, people start to flock a little bit, and might be in that situation, being like, all these people are offering to help, they're offering to be my mentor. Like, if you are in that position, how do you kind of sift between, this is someone who's got my best interests at heart and is genuinely offering their time to help, and this is someone who's potentially looking just to piggyback on that success? So they're kind of red flags, good things to look for.
Yeah, I mean, I think when those people come out of the weeds, they're generally pretty obvious. They're not very good at hiding it. That's what, if they've got it in, if it's for their own agenda. So being able to see through it. But again, at the same time, I've been guilty of this. I've been naive and, sort of lent on people like that and said, oh, right, brilliant, these people are willing to help or whatever. And then they've not, really been very helpful at all in that sense. And I think just when someone's doing that, I mean, I hate to say it, but almost having that bit of skepticism about it, about the why. But I think asking, again, being open about it, going, if someone's coming up to you saying, look, I think I can help you, that is brilliant that people are willing to do that. I think because one of the things about mentoring is that the mentees often don't have confidence to start with. And that's where it can fall down. So it's like they don't have the confidence to reach out. They don't have the confidence to ask. So when someone spots something and they go, I can help you, then have the conversation and just see what's in it for them, where that might work. And I've got a good example of that actually, where that actually worked out was my dad met one of my mates and said, can you put me in touch? Because I think I could help them out a bit in their business. And I was like, yeah, no issue. And I mentioned it to my mate. He said, yeah, we'd really welcome that. And then he went in and helped them. He's got loads of experience. He just saw a thing where he thought, I can help these people. I'd enjoy it. He's nearly at retirement age. He's thinking, I'd enjoy this. There's nothing that I'm looking to get out of it other than being able to help someone. And it worked out brilliantly. So that was like a scenario where that did work. But yeah, I think just when people do come and offer those, like helping hands or whatever it is, have the conversation. And again, if you are on that sort of road to success and you're seeing this and you're thinking people are coming out of the woodwork, and just again having the conversation, I think it's pretty easy to spot the people who don't have your best interests at heart most of the time. I'd say that again, they're not very good at hiding it when it's just something for them and not trying to genuinely help you.
Absolutely. We've mentioned a couple of times today about that trusting your gut instinct, like if something feels wrong, it quite possibly is, and just kind of having the confidence to open up that conversation. So if anyone else does have questions for Adam, drop them in the chat and we'll move through them. So I suppose one of my next questions is, because we talked a bit about inclusion and underrepresented groups. Do you think it's useful for your mentor to be from a similar type of background, or that groups you? So if we talk about if it's a person of colour, for your mentor to also be a person of colour, or do you think there's a value in being like actually getting that diversity between the mentoring relationship?
I think there's massive value in both. I think obviously if someone's been walked in your shoes, they have a massive understanding already, and if they've got to a position that you want to get to, facing those challenges, then they will be able to help you get through. I think the inverse of that is the person who's not been that, and that's where we'd say like they're more an ally in that situation. But that then is probably even more powerful in that it educates them, and then that in turn educates others, and they understand. They might not be, they can say they understand, and they can learn about it. They can never actually say I know exactly what that feels like, but they might be able to compare it to something. They might say, look, I've never been through that or faced that challenge, but I have faced this. Which is comparable or similar in some respects, so I can have that degree of empathy with what you're going through. But I think the main thing there is that it will educate them on those situations, and it might be something that they can solve quick. If there's something for whatever reason that's happening to someone in a city, they can go, why is that a thing? Let's get rid of that now, and let's break that barrier down for everyone. And that's just dealt with. And it's like, we never knew that was a thing. So how did we? If we never knew, it might not have been, it's that unconscious bias, that kind of thing. It's like, we never knew this was a thing. Now that we do, we can remove it and break those barriers down. Whereas if it's someone who is in the similar situation to you, then they don't maybe have that power. They might fall on deaf ears, because in terms of like they've had to just go about it the way they've gone about it to get to that position. And those problems still exist. So I think there's massive value in both where possible.
Brilliant. I think that's so important, isn't it? That, yeah, having somebody say like they've been there and done it, and you just don't have to explain why that's an issue, but actually getting those issues in front of a group that haven't had to experience those issues can be really important. So I know I saw it over, you know, the Black Lives Matter, that, you know, there was issues that I just had never even considered. And I called out an organisation at one point and immediately got a response. And I was like, yeah, cool, great. And it was actually Bianca who phoned me afterwards, and she was like, you know, thank you so much for doing that, like, great. But how annoying that it took a white person to call it out to get an answer. And I was like, oh my God, like, I just never even saw that. I was like, I expected to get an answer. You know, people don't ignore me. This is fine. And actually, it just made me really like check my privilege in that situation. That's then made me kind of much more alive to that. And more recently, over everything we saw around, you know, Sarah Everard's disappearance and looking at that kind of safety for women, that have suddenly had all of these conversations with, you know, a lot of white men who are suddenly like, have never even considered this, and are now actually starting to make changes in the way that they run events and the way that they manage property, which has been quite interesting to see. What for you would you say is kind of your, is there a downside to getting involved in mentoring? If people are looking at, you know, committing this time in it, is there a negative, or is it all like, no, this is absolutely going to be a great thing to do?
We haven't found any really, to be honest. I think the only negative is maybe when the people don't commit. I think that's, you know, that's like if one person's more committed than the other, then that'll fall down. But even then, you know, there's opportunities to, if you have those multiple mentors, if you have the mentors around you, to be able to go and find them, that's where that can be rectified. Yeah, I mean, like I say, we run our business on it. It's what we massively believe in, from our own personal experiences that drove us to do it in the first place. That we know the value in it. I can't really think of anything that I'd say, oh, it's great, but, you know, there's no but here. I can't think of anything to add to that end of that sentence. So yeah, I highly recommend it. It's changed my life. It's changing other people's lives for the better, and that's exactly what we want to replicate as much as we can.
Fantastic. And that aligns so beautifully with what JCI does all around kind of, you know, developing young leaders, is having those mentors that, you know, I've had, you know, throughout the organisation, have been phenomenal. So we can't have this conversation like where we are now without talking about like the absolute chaos that has been the last kind of 12 to 18 months. How much more important have those mentoring relationships become in this, you know, absolute stuck in your house, nothing is normal, you know, every anxiety is heightened?
Yeah, they've got us through it, in no uncertain terms. They've been huge for us. Like our mentors around the business, our personal mentors, they've just been absolutely fantastic. You know, this is an absolutely unique situation we're all facing. No one's got an answer as to how to deal with it. But again, we at that point when it hit, we're like, okay, we've never been through this kind of crisis as a business. You know, the last recession, we were both in jobs. We were coming out of university when that happened, with like the 2008 crash, and the impact that lasted for, you know, right up to say middle of the 20 teens. We hadn't gone through that as a business, so this is brand new. We've never faced it. But I think the one thing we did straight away was then actually we looked for the opportunities in it. You know, I think one thing I learned from that recession last time was there's always going to be opportunities in a crisis. And for us, it was okay, we've got a product. It was weird because we were looking at everything we were gambling on as a business was brought forward by like 20 years even. You know, we've been over to Silicon Valley a few times. We'd seen where we thought the future of work was going in terms of tools, in terms of integrations, in terms of collaboration, more distributed workforces, more distributed teams. And we thought, okay, they're leading the way in this. This is going to hit. It's going to become a thing. We want to become the best, like in class, people development platform that we can be, and just be the best in class in the world. That was our ambition. And the gamble of that was, people are going to start working remotely and more distributed. And we thought about this hybrid future work, and then it happened. And the thing that brought it all to the halt was things like the big banks and people even getting on board, because that's the bit of it we thought would never happen. Like, no matter how much the world would change, we never thought the big banks and companies, because I've worked in them, I know what it's like. They are slow moving, they're not massive on innovation. So the fact that they were forced into it meant, okay, people are getting around this, so we've got to react now. We've got to, this is what we were gambling on, this is what we were looking at. But at the same time, we faced massive challenges because we're a tool for developing employees, and people didn't know what was happening with their employees. They thought, we're getting rid of them, we're putting people on furlough, we don't know what they can and can't do, we're downsizing, we're scaling up. Like, it was chaos, and it still is a bit. And that initial few months where we thought, oh, we've got a product absolutely for this moment, we didn't. It was in that sense because people didn't know. But what it actually did then was it gave us the opportunity to work more with communities, which we sort of put to one side. And that then is what I'd say led us to then getting those corporate clients that we were after in the first place, later in, back in the last year. So yeah, I think the thing about the chaos of the last year is like, and those mentors around us, they were able to help us through that, where it's like, okay, this has guided us to that. And one of the best things I'd say our like investors or non-execs gave us was the breathing room. So that, we've had the time, we have this, they give us all the right advice and guidance, but they also let us get on with the job at hand. They weren't telling us we should do this or we have to do this. And we've got that relationship anyway, but they never did at any point say, you have to do this. It was a case of, look, this is what you should be doing. This is how we get through this phase of this. And this is the next thing. And I think the outcome of this is that, in a really positive way for us, we're not going to be classed as a pandemic product, because there's a risk of any product that's done really well, or any company that's done really well over the last 12 months, 18 months, is that it's classed as a pandemic product. So when we go back to this, whatever the future of work looks like, people are going to go, oh, we don't need that anymore, or we need less of it, and it's going to, we're going to get rid of it. Whereas for us, we're actually like part of that hybrid future work. So we're part of the next revolution, which is what we want it to be. So those people around us helped us get through the last 18 months and make the right decisions, basically, and make the right choices and go after the right things, and help us focus as well. Because it was I think the thing we learned from last year in particular was we were all over the place, because we were saying yes to this and yes to that and going, oh, we can do that, we can do that. But then it's like, no, we're going all in different directions here. We need to really focus. And that discussion with our non-execs and mentors around us was huge, because that, the fact that we were thinking that, and then we got their sort of backing on that and then delivered on it has really changed everything for us.
Fantastic. And I think it's really easy, isn't it? So when we talk about mentoring, we talk about, it's like we've got that upwards career trajectory, and it's like those mentors helping you come up, but actually like that value shows at the time when stuff crashes and it's difficult and you're in that situation, that to have that set of advisors ready to go and literally invested in you, like not just financially, but actually genuinely care about what you're doing. And I've been watching your journey from the sidelines over the last year, and it's clear that you are ready for what's coming next. And I think you're a little bit younger than me, so you might not be quite as offended by this term as I am, but there was an article recently saying that the geriatric millennial is exactly the right age bracket for leading this hybrid working scheme. And I was like, I've never been so upset by a phrase in my life. I was like, it's nice things you're saying, but let's get a new term for it. But I feel like as a generation, like that's what we're ready for, is that